It should be this movement. If the spring pulls the thread, a piece might break or not complete this route that we are working on at the moment. Simply, it won't help us to tighten the thread, and that's why it's essential for the release spring to be in good shape. Well, in this video, we're going to learn how to take down all the tensioner pieces and put it back together in case we need to replace a stone or change the spring of the trimmers, as this one tends to break. In this video, we will learn how to lower all the pieces and assemble them properly. Alright, let's see how we lower all these pieces. We are going to do it one by one, and we are going to put them in order here. When we bring down the pieces, we'll know the order they go in. Sabbalos created by the Amaro community. And once we have it at 0, we are going to apply a bit of pressure outward, and we are going to put it in order. First, then we are going to remove this tooth wheel which holds the pieces inside the tensioner. Be very careful. Enjoy your meal. We put it like this. Now let's look at this piece, which has a little clip, and I'll explain the purpose of this clip along with this piece in a moment. So this one goes third, then we have the spring that gives pressure to the discs to tighten the thread. Then we have support where the spring goes. Well, here we see the thread spring which comes like this. And what we need to do is move all these pieces, or simply so it doesn't get lost soon or make it harder, we remove this part, the spring, we cross these pieces again, so you can do it one by one. When we remove this piece, remember that this piece always goes with this nail forward inserted in this hollow. Then we have the two tension discs, one and two. Well, here we have the spring pulls the thread. Let's remember that the spring pulls the thread on all machines and helps us to tighten the top thread. Many of these springs tend to break the little clip where it sits, so that it can do the tension movement. Should be this movement. If the trimmer spring breaks, some part may not work. This function we are doing right now simply won't help us tighten the thread, and it's going to cause tension problems. Leaving the thread loose on one side, it's going to pull the thread bobbins, and that's why it's essential that the clock spring is in good condition. A big problem with this machine is that people don't know how to lower the tensioner, so the tension isn't right and the tensioner isn't doing its job, which is helping to tighten the thread, pulling the thread, giving tension to the thread to help form a nice seam. So let's take it out. We can see. Now let's start assembling, and here we see how we can leave all the pieces in order. Ideally, every time you do this procedure, place everything back in order just as it is here, from the first to the last, which would be the spring. And again, when mounting or changing this spring, we start with the spring second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, fifth. So when the spring is replaced or reinstalled, we need to keep in mind that it has this tiny hook. This part gets embedded here, helping us generate the tension. Ideally, this little clip should be more or less. We're going to flip part of this piece somewhere around here. We need to ensure that when we insert it, it provides this kind of tension as we are seeing here. Then we continue with the discs. Let's remember that we don't see this part go in yet until right now. The first disc at the second disc, and this piece with this tab that will slot into this little hole. Now when we have these pieces like this, we take the other piece, we pull the spring towards the hole and insert it into the bolt, ending up like this. Well, doing this might make the spring come out, Let me show you that it indeed came out just now. So see that it doesn't. The spring isn't doing anything. We just grab, put the pieces, move them a bit this way, and done. We lower the spring so that the piece fits into the inside piece. We look again, and here we see that it's already giving us thread tension. We continue with the support where the spring goes. We continue with the spring. We also need to keep that in mind, that this type of spring, what is rather hard, if we change the spring for a very soft one, it will not exert the same tension on the disc. We'll have to tighten it a lot, and it won't give us the tension we need, leaving the upper thread loose. It will stitch very loosely from below, causing sewing problems. Remember, this spring is small and short, but it is a harder material. There are some that are much more flexible, longer, but with a much thinner material, which doesn't put much tension on us, and it won't cause issues. So we should also consider that this part often breaks a lot, these legs, or this one right here. Well, we should also replace it whenever we have an issue. Likewise, the spring should fit well into this part. It can also wear out and can change the spring's movement, causing us stitching problems. We'll continue with this piece, the small latch I'll tell you about. We should place this little clip facing down. Then we attach it with the nut that holds the pieces to the stud. Remember that the stud is which is where all the tensioner parts go. We give it 1 or 2 turns, and now we're going to see that the piece I mentioned with this little notch will float. Then ideally it would be so that 0 remains at the top and the little notch fits into one of these holes. Left with 0 tension. Let's see. Okay, we see that it stays at 0. And when we move the tensioner, it should reach number 9. We can see it reaches halfway between 0 and 9. We reduce the tension, and it should be back to 0 in the same position. Like this. We make sure that when we put the small hook in that position, and 0 is on top, it gives us all the necessary tension, so it will tighten the thread. Well, depending on the tension we need for the fabric we are sewing once again. Before we start sewing or threading, let's double check the pulled spring's tension, which should be this one.